Oh, sorry. God, I don't know what to say about that. Good morning. Today is a video on a lesson on how to video yourself without your head in the screen. No, that's not true at all. We're going to do a little multiplying and dividing with fractions. Now, the good news is multiplying with fractions actually is pretty easy. You see that on the screen? Half of a half. Now, what is half of a half? What's half of a half? Well, if you took half of a half in pizza, what'd you have? You'd have a fourth, right? Right there. Well, how do you get that? How to half of a half? This is multiplication. One half times one half equals 1/4. Do you see what we did there? We just simply multiply our numerators and multiply our denominators. It's that simple. Honestly, that's how it is. What would be? Let's look at 1/3. That's a multiplied sign, just a dot of a half. 1/3 of a half. Well, let's look. Well, here's a half, and here it is in 3 parts, and here's one of it. Well, how much is that of the whole? It's 1/6. Can you see that? So 1 times 1 is 1, and 3 times 2 is 6. The only thing we have to do when we multiply with fractions at the end is simplify the fraction if it ends up being if it's not in its simplest form. So let's do another. Let's say I have 2/5 times, let's do this 1/2. 2/5 of a half. It's a little trickier. We'd have to cut a half into fifths and then take 2 of them. And when we're asking ourselves, what is that of the whole? So this one, same thing, same rule applies though. Just multiply. Numerators, 2 times 1 and 5 times 2 is 2/10. Now, when we look at 2/10, though, they're both even numbers. That means we can use the magic 1 to divide by 2 over 2 on each, the numerator and the denominator, to end up with 1/5. Okay? Now remember, this is 2/5 of a half. Okay? 2/5 of a half. Again, if I take a half, and in this case, cut it into fifths, let's take the. Well, that's just terrible drawing. Like, don't you agree? Like, you're like, wow, Mr. Pembroke, that's about the worst drawing I've ever seen in my life. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and 2/5 of a half. Now notice in the terms of the whole, you can see that that is 1/5 of the whole. Okay, and that's why the answer is 1/5 at the end. Now don't stress about diagramming it, because the bottom line is multiplying fractions is super easy. You just multiply the numerators and the denominators. Multiply the numerators, multiply the denominators, that's your answer. So in this case, it is 2 times 5 is, and 7 times 7 is. And then you're going to look to simplify, though, at the end for common factors to divide those two by. Okay, now, here's a pro tip. You know the commutative property of multiplication tells us this. Commutative moves around. It doesn't matter if I go 2 times 3 or if I go 3 times 2. That does not matter. They're the same exact answer, right? It's not going to matter. Okay? It doesn't even matter if I can throw another multiplier in here. It doesn't matter what order I do them, because you're going to get the same answer no matter what you do. If you go 3 times 4 is 12, times 2 is 24, or you go 2 times 3 is 6, times 4 is 24. You can go 4 times 2 is 8, times 3 is 24. So the commutative property of multiplication means you can multiply them in any order you want. It's not going to change the answer. So if I do this, watch this crazy thing. Okay. Think about the answer to this problem. 2/3 of a half. 2/3 times half. What's the answer to this? What you just learned was 2 times 1 and 3 times 2. Now notice that they're at you can simplify because you can divide by 2 on both the top and the bottom. Check this out though. Because of the commutative, now don't freak out. This is not that big a deal, but some kids freak out sometimes. Like, what? How'd you do that? We're like, oh, because it's got the commutative property of multiplication, I can do this. I can actually move the 2 over to here and the 3 over to here. Is it going to change my answer? No, not at all, right? Watch. If I move the 2 over to here and move the 3 over to there, I'm still going to get 6, right? Would you agree? So watch. Let me actually do this. Check this out. There. Same answer. That's the correct answer. But notice when I moved those 2, because the commutative property, this now is just 1. And there's the actual answer is 1/3. When I simplify that, it's 1/3. So what we did there, it's called cross canceling. Because of the commutative property, I can look across and see if I have common factors that I can cancel. And in this case, I have a 2 and a 2. I could cancel them out and just get my final answer is 1/3. Okay. You don't have to use the cross cancel method, but it does give you the simplified fraction. And in the end of the day, when you become a high school kid and a college kid or whatever, you're going to enjoy this cross cancel thing because it's going to make your life more peasier, easier. So when our fractions get a little bit bigger here like this, using the cross cancel method is helpful because in this case, 4/10 is 40, right? And 5 times 11 is 55. 40 55ths. You can see there's a common factor in there. What goes both into 40 and 55? Well, guess what? It's 5. And here it is. So if I move this over to here, put the 11th here, 11 here, put the 5 here. Okay, look, what is that really? 10 divided by 5 is 2, right? So I can actually get rid of this completely and make it a 2. And our final answer then becomes 8/11ths. Notice that in my original, was this, right? If I just cross cancel, 5 goes into 5 once, 5 goes into there twice, there's the 2. 2 times 4 is 8, and 1 times 11 is 11. Cross cancel. This is not incorrect. That is correct. You just have to simplify at the end. So cross canceling allows me to simplify it faster. So some kids catch on to that quick, and it makes their life simpler. Now, one more thing about multiplying with fractions. If I were going to multiply 23 times 4, okay, I'm going to be multiplying the 4 times the 3 and the 4 times the 20, right? Okay. Now, when we multiply with fractions like this, check it out. We got a mixed number here. See that? So I can't just go, this is 1/2 times 1/2 equals 1/4 and 3. That's not correct. And the reason for that is I need to go 1/2 times the half and 1/2 times the 3. Just as though I did this kind of thing. I need 4 times the 3, 4 times the 20. Same concept. I can't just go 4 times 3 and then put a 20 down, 2 down. I got to go 1/2 times the half and 1/2 times the 3. So the method for this is to change this into an improper fraction. And we've been working on that in the past, where remember that in this 3, there is 2/2, 2/2, and 2/2. There's 3 holes, right, in the 2/2 pattern. So we can go 2 times 3 is 6, plus the 1 is 7/2. So this is what you do with mixed numbers. Okay. And now you just multiply. So change a mixed number into an improper fraction. Again, we can look for a cross-cancel opportunity, but there is none here. This ends up at 7/4, and we know that 7/4 is improper, so at the end we're going to take a 4/4 out of this. 7 divided by 4 is 1, with 3 left over. If you notice, 1/2 times a half is 1/4, and 1/2 times 3 is 1.5, right? So 1 and 1/2 plus 1/4 converts to 2 fourths, 3 fourths, 1 3/4. But the bottom line is just convert any mixed numbers into fractions. Okay, that goes to if it's 2 mixed numbers. If you got this kind of thing going on too, 3 1/3 times 4 1/4. We're going to convert them both because look, you have to multiply a 4 times that, a 4 times that, okay, and then the 4 times the 3, and then the 4 times the 3. So you can see it's kind of complicated. So instead, we're going to convert these into improper fractions. This becomes 9 10/3, and this becomes 16 17/4. And now we look for a cross-cancel opportunity. We do have one on the 10 to the 4, actually. But you can see, and you should use it too, because 2 goes there twice, here 5 times, and I got 5 times, this is going to be a 6 on the bottom, 5 times 50, 35, 85 sixths, and then you got to go to 85 divided by 6. You can see this gets kind of complicated. Okay. But it's all doable, no big deal. We can keep going, 85 6, and we divide by blah, 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 blah. Okay. Now, one last thing. Division. Okay. Good news for you. We never divide with fractions. Let me say it. We never divide with fractions. We can turn this into a multiply problem. Now the question is, how many fourths are in a half? How many fourths are in a half? How many fourths are in a half? 2. That's what division of fractions is. It's asking you how many of that fraction is in this thing, whatever that thing is first. So the answer is 2. And you're like, well, how do you get 2 out of that? Well, because when you have a division with fractions, what you do is you turn it into a multiply problem, and you multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. Reciprocal is a number, any number, that if you multiply by its reciprocal, you get 1. So the reciprocal basically is just simple. Reciprocal, flip it over. Reciprocal. Reciprocal. Flip it over. And then you just multiply. 1 times 4 is 4. 2 times 1 is 2. And 4 halves is actually 4 divided by 2 equals 2. Which I already drew. Watch this. Simple. Don't freak. It's all easy. Watch. If I said how many halves are in a third? That sounds kind of weird, but you're going to actually get a partial here. It's going to be bizarre. So all you do, don't freak out. Just make it a multiply problem. Leave the first fraction the way it is and multiply by the reciprocal of the second fraction. You see what the reciprocal is? You just flip it over. And then you multiply. 2/3. Cake a piece. Cake a piece, man. Cake a piece. No problem. If you have a mixed number, and same thing. Look, check it out. If I 2/3. If I just first, it's multiple steps. We're gonna set this up as a multiply problem. Check out this reciprocal. See it? Flippity flippity. And then we're going to convert this into an improper fraction. So that's 10/3 times 3 halves. Look at the cross cancel on the 3s. The answer is going to be 5. But watch this: 36s. And then 36 is actually 5. What? Yeah, I can rewind this and go over it again. You learned the reciprocal of a fraction is flip it over. Actually, reciprocal of any number. It doesn't have to be a fraction. Check it out. Because what's the reciprocal of the 3? What's underneath the 3? What's underneath any whole number at any given time in the world? A 1. Okay, so the reciprocal actually in this case is a third. See? Watch this crazy thing. If I said this, if I said 4 divided by 2, and if I use the same rule, that is, don't divide, instead multiply by the reciprocal, check it out. Does it work? 4 times 1/2. Remember, there's a 1 under a whole number. Right? What's underneath this whole number? 1. So you get 4/2, which is actually 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Man, it's so cool. Whack-a-doodle. Don't divide with fractions. Multiply by the reciprocal. Don't divide with fractions. Multiply by the reciprocal. Okay. And also you learned not only how to multiply and divide with fractions, you also learned how to make a video without your head. Thanks for watching.